The first time that woman called my husband at midnight. I thought someone had died. That's how quietly a marriage can start to come apart, my friend. Not with shouting. Not with slammed doors. Just one phone call, at the wrong hour, from the wrong voice. I remember sitting up in bed, the room still warm from our shared body heat, the ceiling fan humming above us. My husband, Daniel, didn't even look at me. He just grabbed his phone, eyes wide like he'd been caught doing something he shouldn't, and stepped out onto the balcony. He whispered. And that whisper, that was the part that stayed with me. A married man doesn't whisper about business at midnight. I didn't know it then, but that call, that soft, hushed conversation in the dark, was the beginning of the truth unraveling. But let me take you back to when things still felt safe. When I still knew who I was, who we were, before the lies found their way into my home. Before all of this, Daniel and I had what most people would call a good marriage. Not movie perfect, just warm, predictable, and steady. We lived in a small house with a blue front door, a little herb garden I planted myself, and a kitchen that always smelled faintly of cinnamon because I baked more often than I admitted. The kind of home where neighbors waved when they walked by and the mailman knew our dog by name. Daniel used to be that man who loved slow Sunday mornings. He'd sit at the dining table with his newspaper, glasses halfway down his nose, sipping coffee like the world could wait. He worked as an operations manager for a growing logistics firm. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave him pride. I remember how his eyes lit up when he told me he'd been paired with a new business partner, a young consultant hired to help streamline their new expansion. Her name was Lena. Back then, the name didn't mean anything. Looking back now, I wish he had never said it. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Or, so I believed. We had our small rituals, Friday night pasta dinners, grocery runs where we'd argue gently about which brand of cereal to buy, evening walks after work where he'd hold my hand loosely, like a man who still remembered the early days of love. He wasn't a bad husband. He wasn't cruel or impatient. But he was drifting. At first, I thought it was work stress. They were expanding across 3 states. Daniel looked tired, overwhelmed. He missed dinners, came home with his shoulders tight, his tie askew, smelling faintly of someone else's office perfume. I'd ask him, long day, and he'd say, you don't even know the half of it. Then he'd kiss the top of my head and disappear into the shower. Normal. Busy. Typical grown-up life. So I convinced myself, one thing about being a wife? You learn to talk yourself out of your own instincts. Especially when you love someone. For months, nothing big happened. Just one little odd thing after another. Like pebbles rolling downhill before the landslide. His phone face down. His sudden sweetness. His sudden distance. Late night emails. Work trips that didn't match the corporate calendar. But I wasn't a suspicious wife. Not yet. One night over dinner, he told me about a charity gala his company was sponsoring, something about supporting small local nonprofits. He looked excited, almost relieved, like this event meant something more to him than work. You'll come, right? He asked. I smiled. Of course. It sounds lovely. I didn't know then that the gala, the room filled with strangers, the warm lights catching on polished silverware, that was where everything would finally fall apart. But for now, life went on. Quietly. Pretending to be normal. It started with that midnight call. Lena. He didn't say her name that night, but I'd heard her voice once before, a bright, too friendly tone on speakerphone when she called during dinner weeks earlier. But the call at midnight, the whispering, the way he stepped. Outside like a guilty teenager sneaking out. That was different. The next morning, I tried to act normal. Golden toast on the plate. Fresh coffee brewing. My robe tied tight around me like armor. Daniel walked in, looking exhausted. Not tired. Worn down. The kind of exhaustion people get from lying. Rough night. I asked gently. He froze, just for a second, before giving me a rehearsed smile. Yeah, sorry about the call. Just work stuff. Just work stuff. Funny how those 3 small words can carry so much weight. I nodded, but something inside me shifted, like a thread being tugged from a knitted sweater. That wasn't the last call. In the days that followed, She called again. Not at midnight this time, but always at odd hours. 11:17 p.m. 5:42 a.m. During dinner. Right after he got home from work. Right when we were laughing about something. Her timing was always intimate. And whenever her name lit up his phone, he sat up straighter, smiled differently, left the room. One evening, when his phone buzzed during a movie, he snatched it the way a kid catches a falling glass. "I need to take this," he said. But his eyes never met mine. I paused the movie and listened to him in the kitchen. A low, gentle tone. A softness I hadn't heard directed at me in weeks. When he returned, his face was flushed. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Just work," he repeated. Work. Always work. I wanted to believe him. Lord knows I tried. But suspicion is like a slow gas leak. You don't see it, don't smell it, don't hear it, until you're dizzy and the whole house is about to explode. Still, I stayed quiet. Still, I trusted him. Still, I prayed I was imagining things. Because the truth is, I loved him. And love will make a fool out of even the wisest women. A few days after the midnight call, I was folding laundry when Daniel's phone buzzed on the dresser. He was in the shower. The steam from the bathroom drifted into the bedroom, and for a moment, I just stood there staring at the screen. Name, Lena, work. Message preview, call me when you're alone. Alone. That was the word that stopped me cold. Not call me when you're free. Not call me when you have a moment. But alone. I didn't open the message. I didn't do anything at all. I just stood there holding a white t-shirt that suddenly felt heavy in my hands. When Daniel came out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, he looked at me like he wasn't sure whether to smile or brace himself. "Everything okay?" he asked. I swallowed the lump in my throat and said, "Yeah," because admitting suspicion out loud felt like lighting a fuse. After that day, my world turned into a quiet investigation. Not the dramatic, snooping through drawers kind. Not the checking his phone while he sleeps kind. No, the kind where you watch. Where you listen. Where you memorize every tiny thing that changes. The way he shaved more often. The new cologne he got as a sample. The way he stopped finishing his sentences. Stopped finishing his meals. Stopped finishing his promises. The worst part? He was trying. I could see that. Bringing home takeout on busy nights. Fixing the loose cabinet door I'd been nagging him about. Sitting beside me on the couch even when he didn't want to watch the show. Men who feel guilty often compensate before they confess. I didn't know that then, but I know it now. Everything came to a head 1 week before the charity gala. Daniel came home unusually late, past midnight, shirt wrinkled, hair messy, smelling faintly of floral perfume that wasn't mine. He dropped his keys on the counter and flinched when he realized I was awake. "You scared me," he said, forcing a laugh. I looked at him, my voice soft. "Long night at the office?" His throat bobbed as he swallowed. "Yeah, the expansion has been crazy. You know how it is." But his tone wasn't convincing, and neither was the perfume. I asked quietly, "Were you with her?" He froze. Not a flinch. Not a blink. A full stop. Then he laughed, too loudly, too quickly. "With her? Who? What are you talking about?" "Your business partner." "Oh my God," he said, shaking his head. "This is ridiculous. She's just a coworker. Someone I'm mentoring." Mentoring. Funny how that word sounded worse than cheating in that moment. He walked past me, kissed the side of my head, and said, "Go to sleep, sweetheart. Don't overthink things." But that kiss didn't feel like it was meant for me. It felt like something he was trained to do. An automatic gesture for a wife he still wanted on his side. That night, I cried quietly facing the wall, my husband's back turned to me inches away. I wondered when we became strangers in the same bed. The charity gala was held at a downtown hotel, the kind with chandeliers that looked like melting gold and waiters carrying trays like ornaments. I wore a navy blue dress that Daniel once said made me look soft. He wore a suit that fit him too well, the one he claimed he only wore for special events. When we arrived, Daniel immediately excused himself to greet a few colleagues. I let him go. I needed a minute to breathe anyway. The room buzzed with conversation, clinking glasses, and an orchestra playing gentle string music. I drifted toward the tables, admiring the floral arrangements, when a gentle voice said, "You must be Daniel's wife." I turned around and saw an elderly woman with soft gray curls and a smile that came from sincere kindness. Her eyes were warm, the kind of warm you don't fake. "Yes," I smiled. "I'm Emily." She touched my hand like she'd been waiting to meet me. "Oh, sweetheart, I've been hoping I'd see you here." "I'm Margaret, Lena's mother." My breath froze. Her mother. Her mother. I nodded politely, my heart hammering. "It's so lovely to meet you," she continued. "You know, I've heard so much about you." I blinked, confused. "About me?" She laughed softly. "Oh, yes. Lena always talked about how supportive you've been. How patient. How understanding." "Understanding about what?" I forced a small laugh, feeling my fingers grow cold. "What exactly did she say about me?" She leaned in conspiratorially, like a sweet grandmother sharing a secret. "She told me you were the reason Daniel finally felt brave enough to leave his marriage." The air left my lungs. My ears rang. "What?" I whispered. She nodded gently, oblivious to my world collapsing. "Oh, yes. She said you were a very kind woman, that you knew about the relationship, and that you told Daniel he deserved happiness." I felt my knees weaken. My hands trembled so hard, I had to grip my clutch. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. "Oh dear," she continued softly. "I hope I haven't overstepped. I just wanted to thank you. It takes a strong woman to let go so gracefully." Let go. Let go? I wasn't letting go. I wasn't even aware I was losing anything. "Excuse me," I breathed, stumbling backward. I walked away from her, the orchestra fading into a distant hum, the lights blurring as tears filled my eyes. Across the room, Daniel was laughing with coworkers, laughing. Relaxed, comfortable, like a man who wasn't hiding a thing. I walked up to him and touched his arm lightly. He turned, smiling, but when he saw my face, the smile died. "We need to talk," I whispered. "In private." He nodded, stiffening, and followed me to a quiet corner behind a row of tall plants, away from the crowd. "What's wrong?" he asked quietly. "Your business partner's mother just thanked me," I said, my voice trembling, "for being so understanding while you leave me for her daughter." His face went white. The kind of white that only truth can bleach into a lie. Daniel didn't speak at first. He just stared at me, silent, pale, caught. The music from the ballroom floated faintly toward us, violins playing something soft and elegant, completely out of place for the moment my marriage was breaking. "Emily." "I can explain," he whispered. There it was. The first line every guilty man rehearses in his head. I swallowed hard, my voice barely holding together. "Explain what, Daniel?" "Explain why her mother thinks you're leaving me? Explain why she believes we've had some civilized conversation about you moving on with her daughter? Explain why everyone in her family seems to know something I don't." He rubbed his face with both hands, the way he always did when he was cornered. "This is all a misunderstanding," he said. "A misunderstanding doesn't last 6 months," I replied. He froze, because now he knew that I knew. The truth wasn't a secret anymore. It was a shadow standing between us. I took a slow breath. My throat hurt from holding in tears. "Just tell me," I said softly. "Please. I deserve that much." He leaned against the wall, eyes closed, jaw clenched. For a moment, he looked like a man preparing for surgery without anesthesia. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, I'll tell you." He wouldn't meet my eyes. I never meant for any of this to happen. Lena came in when work got really stressful. She was always there. She listened. She cared. And I got confused. "Confused?" I repeated. He nodded weakly. "Yes." I didn't plan. I held up my hand. "Stop. Don't make this sound like it just happened to you. You're a grown man, Daniel, not a leaf in the wind." His eyes hardened just a little. I know I made mistakes. But I tried to fix it. I tried to distance myself." I shook my head. "She called you at midnight, Daniel. You whispered to her on our balcony. You think that's distancing?" He bit his lip. Silence. Some truths don't need confirmation. The absence of denial speaks loud enough. I continued, my voice shaking now. So, what did you tell her mother? Did you actually say you were leaving me? Daniel looked down at his shoes. He didn't answer. That silence was the truth. My heart broke in a clean, sudden line, like glass snapping under pressure. Daniel, I whispered, were you planning to leave me without even telling me? He finally looked up, and his eyes were full of guilt. Emily, I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you. I laughed, but it wasn't a laugh. It was a sound made of disbelief and pain. You didn't want to hurt me? You've been living a second life. A secret life. With another woman. And her mother thinks I'm somehow supporting this. He reached out for my arm. I pulled away. Please, he said softly, please don't make a scene. A scene. That's what he cared about. Not me. Not our vows. Not the years we spent building a life. No, he just didn't want the other guests to stare. That was the moment I stopped crying. Stopped shaking. Stopped feeling. The numbness washed over me like ice. I'm going home, I said quietly. Alone. He grabbed my hand gently. Emily, please. Let's talk in the car. No, I said firmly. We'll talk when you're ready to tell the whole truth. Not this half-baked version you're trying to hand me like an apology. Before he could stop me, I turned and walked toward the exit. I didn't run. I didn't hide my tears. I walked calmly, chin up, the way my mother always taught me. Never let a man ruin your posture. As I stepped outside, the cool night air hit my face. It felt like a slap and a blessing all at once. I stood by the curb, shaking so hard I had to hug myself. I thought he would come after me. I thought he would grab my hand, say my name, ask me not to leave. But he didn't. And that silence, that empty doorway, told me everything I needed to know. Daniel came home an hour later. I was sitting at the kitchen table, the overhead light casting a soft glow over a bowl of untouched fruit. My hands were folded tightly, the way they always were when I was trying not to fall apart. He walked in slowly, like a man stepping onto thin ice. Emily, he began, his voice barely above a whisper, please, let's talk. I looked up at him. Calm. Steady. Tired. Then talk, I said. And stop filtering it this time. He sat across from me, shoulders sagging. Okay, he said. You're right. I haven't been honest. Lena and I, we got close. Too close. And yes, we talked about the future. But I didn't. I didn't actually decide anything. I stared at him. Her mother thinks you did. I didn't tell her that, he insisted quickly. She believes you did, I said. And that belief had to come from somewhere, Daniel. He looked away again. How long? I whispered. He hesitated. Daniel, I repeated, my voice cracking, how long? He exhaled slowly, defeated. 7 months. 7 months. Nearly a year of my life that I didn't know had someone else living inside it. I nodded slowly, trying to keep my breathing steady. And were you planning to leave me? He closed his eyes. I don't know. You do know, I said gently. You just don't want to say it. He pressed his palms into his eyes like he wanted to push the truth back inside. Emily, I cared about you. I still do. But things changed. I felt stuck. And with Lena, I felt alive. I finished for him. He swallowed hard. Yes. I nodded again. Then why didn't you just tell me? I asked softly. Why didn't you give me the dignity of knowing my marriage was ending instead of making me look like a fool in front of strangers? He didn't answer. The truth was simple. He wanted both lives. Mine for stability. Hers for excitement. And a man who wants 2 lives will eventually destroy both. I sat there quietly for a long moment. Then I said the words I never thought I'd say. I'm done living in your shadow, Daniel. He looked up sharply. Emily, no, I said gently. Listen. I'm not screaming. I'm not throwing anything. I'm not begging you to stay. But I will not live another day being the wife who doesn't know she's already been replaced. He inhaled sharply, guilt flooding his face. What are you saying? I stood up slowly, my voice steady, almost peaceful. I'm saying I want a separation. It was his turn to break. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, like he suddenly forgot how to speak. You don't mean that, but I did. Every word. You already left me emotionally, I said. I'm just catching up. He started crying quiet tears, the kind that come from a man who thought he'd never face consequences. I walked to our bedroom, pulled out a suitcase, and began packing. Not everything, just enough to reclaim my power. My favorite clothes, my journal, my grandmother's necklace, my sense of self. He followed me down the hallway, voice cracking. Emily, please. I messed up. I know that. But we can fix this. I shook my head gently. No, Daniel. You broke something. And I'm finally choosing myself. I spent that night at my sister Claire's place. She didn't ask questions when I arrived with a suitcase and swollen eyes. Claire has always been that kind of sister, the sit down first, talk later type. The kind who hands you a warm blanket and a cup of chamomile before she asks who she needs to fight. I slept on her couch, wrapped in the scent of cinnamon candles and safety. But sleep didn't come easy. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's face, the guilt, the panic, the shame. And beneath it, the love I once believed in evaporating like breath on glass. I kept replaying Margaret's words. Not the kindness, not the sweetness, but the truth she delivered without meaning to. She said you were the reason Daniel finally felt brave enough to leave his marriage. Brave. Brave enough to leave, yet not brave enough to tell me. In the quiet of Claire's living room, I realized something. Daniel hadn't simply betrayed me. He'd rewritten our story without my consent. And now I had to write the next chapter on my own. 3 days passed before I went back home. Not because I wanted to, but because some part of me needed closure in the space where everything began. When I walked into the house, it smelled like emptiness. Daniel was there, sitting at the dining table with his head in his hands. He looked smaller, like a deflated version of the man I married. Emily, he whispered, standing up as I entered. I held up my hand gently. Sit. He sat. I placed my keys on the counter and took a slow breath. The house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming. We need to talk about what happens next, I said. He nodded, eyes swollen, cheeks unshaven. I don't want to lose you, he whispered. A sad smile touched my lips. You already did. You just didn't notice when. He closed his eyes like the words physically hurt him. I sat across from him, keeping my voice calm, not angry, not bitter, just final. Here's what we're going to do, Daniel. We're separating for now. He inhaled sharply. And then? After some time apart, I interrupted gently, we'll talk about divorce. His face crumpled. Emily, please no, I said quietly. I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing this because I don't want to grow old next to a man who doesn't choose me every day. He gripped the table edge. I did choose you, no, I corrected softly. You chose comfort with me and excitement with her. Silence stretched between us like a long shadow. And Daniel, I added gently, I'm not fighting for a place in your life that someone else already occupies. He covered his face with both hands. I let him cry. Not because it healed anything, but because it showed me the piece of him that was still human. When he finally lifted his head, he whispered, I ended things with her. I nodded slowly. Doesn't change what happened. He swallowed. I know. You can't unbreak something by dropping who you broke it with, I said. The truth landed between us like a stone. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I didn't negotiate with heartbreak. Instead, I started planning. A new place to stay temporarily. Time off. From work. A therapist appointment. A few boxes to gather what little I needed. These weren't acts of leaving. They were acts of returning to myself. Daniel watched me pack with a silence that carried regret. You're really going, he said softly. Yes, I replied. For how long? As long as I need. He nodded, staring at the floor. Emily, I'm sorry. I know, I said. But apologies don't undo actions. As I zipped my suitcase, he whispered, Is there anything I can do to fix it? I paused. Then I turned to him. Yes, I said calmly. You can face what you did. With honesty. With accountability. Not with excuses. He nodded, tears welling again. And Daniel, I continued. You can let me go without trying to hold on to the parts of me you already broke. He sank onto the edge of the bed, defeated. I just never thought you'd actually leave, he whispered. A soft sadness moved through me. That's the problem, I said. You counted on my love to keep me here, but didn't give yours in return. I didn't say the rest out loud, but I felt it deeply. I can love you and still choose myself. I didn't expect to see Lena again so soon. But life has a way of placing truth right where you can't avoid it. 2 weeks later, I returned to the charity headquarters to deliver some documents I'd volunteered to handle months earlier. It felt good to do something normal, something that didn't involve emotions or lawyers or tears. As I walked through the lobby, I heard someone call my name. Emily? I turned, and there she stood. Lena. Her eyes wide, her face pale, her mouth trembling. She approached slowly, like she wasn't sure if I'd turn and walk away. I heard you and Daniel separated, she said. I didn't respond. She swallowed hard. Emily, I'm so sorry. It was the first time I'd ever seen her without confidence, without makeup layered over insecurity, without the brightness she wore like armor. I didn't know he wasn't being honest with you, she said. Voice breaking. He told me you two were already talking about ending things. He made it sound like you were the one who wanted out. I didn't speak. I didn't trust my voice. She continued, trembling. I never wanted to be the reason a marriage ended. I really believed him. And my mother, I know, I said finally. She didn't mean any harm. Lena nodded quickly. She didn't. She just believed what Daniel told me and what I told her. The guilt in her eyes was real. And I surprised myself with what I said next. I don't hate you. She looked up, startled. I blame Daniel, I said softly. He owed me honesty. You didn't. A tear slipped down her cheek. I ended everything with him, she said. I told him I won't be part of something built on lies. I nodded. Good, I said quietly. For both your sakes. She sniffled, wiping her cheeks. I hope one day you find peace. And someone who treats you the way you deserve. I gave a small, sad smile. That's the plan, I said. For the first time, she smiled back. A tired, broken smile. Then she stepped aside, letting me pass. And as I walked out of that building, sunlight warming my face, I felt something shift inside me. Not closure. Not forgiveness. But freedom. A quiet, steady freedom that said, you survived the breaking, and now you get to rebuild. What happened next wasn't planned. I wasn't seeking revenge. I wasn't trying to embarrass Daniel or expose him. But secrets have a way of slipping into the light all on their own. It started at his company. The charity gala incident had created whispers. People noticed Daniel rushing after me that night. People noticed his panic. People noticed Lena's tear-streaked face when she left shortly after. Office gossip spreads faster than fire in dry grass. One afternoon, while I was still staying at Claire's, I received a text from one of Daniel's coworkers, a woman named Karen who'd always been kind to me during company dinners. Emily, I don't want to pry, but people here talking. I thought you should know that HR called Daniel in for a meeting. I stared at the message, my stomach tightening. Not because I felt triumphant, but because affairs between coworkers, especially when one is a consultant on contract, often cause trouble far beyond the heart. I didn't respond immediately, but then Karen sent another text. The truth is coming out whether he wants it to or not. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Not anger, not gossip, just sympathy. And suddenly, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, validation. Not joy at his consequences, not satisfaction, just validation. For so long I had questioned myself, blamed myself, wondered if I was unlovable, uninteresting. Not enough. But now the truth wasn't just in my hands. It was out there. Exposed. Visible. And I wasn't the only one who saw it. A week later, Daniel called. His voice sounded defeated even on the first syllable. Emily, I need to see you. I didn't want to see him. But closure requires clarity. And clarity sometimes requires eye contact. We met at a quiet cafe, a place we used to love. The kind with wooden tables and soft jazz playing. He looked exhausted. 10 years older. Like guilt had been eating him from the inside. HR conducted an internal review, he said flatly. I nodded. And? There, discontinuing Lena's contract. I inhaled slowly. And you? He looked away. They're moving me to a different department, away from client relations. I stirred the coffee I hadn't touched. I see. It's humiliating, he said quietly. Actions have consequences, I replied, not unkindly. They always do. Sometimes late, but never absent. He rubbed his forehead. I didn't think it would get this far. I let out a soft, tired breath. Daniel, everything you did was always going to get this far, whether you wanted it to or not. He closed his eyes. I've ruined everything, he whispered. You ruined us, I corrected gently. You didn't ruin me. His eyes filled with tears again. But this time, something was different. He wasn't crying from guilt. He was crying because he realized I'd moved on emotionally. You've changed, he whispered. I've woken up, I replied. I hadn't planned on telling my parents or Daniel's family. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because I didn't want the pity. But life doesn't always wait for your permission. My mother found out first. Not from me. From Daniel's sister, who heard the version circulating through the corporate grapevine. My mother called me the next morning, her voice trembling. Baby, why didn't you tell me? I sank onto the edge of the bed at Claire's house. I didn't want to worry you. I'm your mother, she said softly. Let me worry. Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't judgmental. It was full of the tenderness I hadn't realized I needed. She cried. She prayed. She reminded me that betrayal says more about the betrayer than the betrayed. And in her words, I found a different kind of strength. Daniel's parents found out too. But their reaction was complicated. His mother called me first, crying harder than I expected. Emily, I'm so ashamed. This isn't how we raised him. I didn't speak. I didn't know what to say. She continued, voice breaking. I want you to know. I love you like a daughter. And no matter what happens between you and Daniel, that will never change. Her kindness wrapped around me like a blanket. But Daniel's father was silent. He didn't call, didn't text, didn't reach out. It wasn't personal. He simply came from a generation where mistakes were dealt with in quiet, internal ways. But later, I learned he'd sat Daniel down and asked him one simple, devastating question. When did you stop being the man I taught you to be? And that was a consequence Daniel never expected. People talk, especially in smaller neighborhoods. Especially when a couple who seemed stable suddenly lives in two separate places. Some neighbors offered quiet sympathy. A gentle pat on the shoulder. An extra batch of cookies left on Claire's porch. A simple, we're here if you need anything. Others whispered. Not out of malice. Out of curiosity. Human curiosity is natural. And frankly, I didn't owe anyone the details. But one afternoon, as I collected a few boxes from my old house, our elderly neighbor Mrs. Reynolds shuffled over, leaning on her little floral cane. She looked at me with cloudy but kind eyes. Emily, sweetheart, your heart must be tired. That one line cracked me open. I nodded, tears slipping down despite my best effort to stay composed. She patted my hand gently. You'll heal, she said. Women always do. Stronger than before. Remember that. Sometimes wisdom comes from unlikely places. About 2 months after I left, Daniel asked to meet again. Not about reconciliation. Not about hopes. Just, I need closure, he said. We sat on a park bench, fall leaves drifting around us. The air smelled like wood smoke and endings. I just want to understand, he said, voice low. At what moment did you stop loving me? I looked at him, really looked. Daniel, I didn't stop loving you, I said softly. I stopped trusting you. He flinched. And trust, I continued, is what holds love in place. Without it, love falls through the cracks. He nodded slowly, pain written across his face. I understand now, he whispered. I hope you do, I said. Because the next woman you love deserves better. She deserves the truth, even when it's inconvenient. He swallowed hard. I don't think I'll ever find someone like you again. I gave a soft, sad smile. That's the consequence, Daniel. Not losing me. Losing who you were allowed to be with me. He closed his eyes, tears slipping down his cheeks. And for the first time, he finally understood the weight of what he'd thrown away. Healing never arrives the way you imagine. It doesn't walk through your door wearing bright colors and carrying balloons. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. Healing arrives quietly. Sometimes in the sound of your own breath after a long cry. Sometimes in the way sunlight hits the floor differently. Sometimes in the moment you realize you laughed, truly laughed, without breaking inside. For me, healing began in small pieces. Small choices. Small freedoms. It began the morning I woke up at Claire's, opened the blinds, and felt sunlight fall across my shoulders like a warm hand. For once, I didn't immediately think about Daniel, or Lena, or the woman at the gala, or the whispers at his job, or the empty space on the other side of the bed. I just sat there, breathing, alive. That's the quiet victory heartbreak never mentions. One day, pain stops being the loudest voice in the room. I found a small apartment a few weeks later, nothing fancy. A little place above a bookstore, with creaky wooden floors and a balcony that overlooked a narrow street. It didn't smell like cinnamon, or comfort, or memories. It smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. The first night I slept there, I laid on the mattress on the floor, listening to cars below and feeling both terrified and grateful. Terrified of being alone. Grateful I finally was. I bought mismatched plates, hung plants in the window, put my grandmother's necklace in a tiny dish by the bed, set fresh flowers on the table, a small reminder that beauty still existed, even in broken places. And slowly, my life began to look like mine again. After years of shrinking myself to fit Daniel's moods, his schedule, his silences, I began reclaiming parts of me I'd forgotten. I signed up for a pottery class I used to dream about. Went on long walks without checking the time. Cooked meals only I liked, spicy ones with too much garlic. Played old music and danced barefoot in my kitchen, laughing at how ridiculous and free I felt. I started journaling again, not about the pain, but about the possibility. About who I could become if I stopped waiting for someone else to choose me. My therapist once said, rebuilding isn't about replacing what you lost. It's about discovering what you never gave yourself permission to be. And she was right. I wasn't rebuilding the woman Daniel broke. I was building the woman Daniel never got to meet. One afternoon, I received a letter. Handwritten. Delicate cursive. Soft lavender envelope. It was from Margaret, Lena's mother. My breath caught as I opened it, unsure of what it would say. Inside was a note. Dear Emily, I owe you an apology I didn't realize I needed to make. I spoke to you with ignorance that night, and my words caused you harm. I believed a story that wasn't true. I realize now the strength you carried, the grace you showed me even while your heart was breaking. Thank you for your kindness. I am truly sorry. Margaret, I held that letter against my chest, feeling something loosen inside me. Forgiveness didn't arrive that day. But the weight of anger lifted enough for me to breathe deeper. Sometimes the peace we need comes from the mouths of those who unknowingly hurt us. Months later, Daniel asked to meet one last time, not to reconcile, not to plead, but to apologize. We met at the same park as before. The leaves had changed golden now, drifting gently onto the path. He approached slowly, shoulders slumped, hands in his pockets. You look different, he said softly. I feel different. I can see that. He sat beside me on the bench. A comfortable silence settled, not the silence of strangers, but the silence of two people who had shared a life and survived its ending. I wanted to say this in person, he said. I'm sorry, Emily. For all of it. For lying. For betraying your trust. For taking your love for granted. I nodded. He continued. You were the best thing in my life. I didn't lose you because you weren't enough. I lost you because I wasn't enough. For the first time, I believed he meant it. I placed my hands on my lap, fingers interlaced. I don't forgive you yet, I said softly. But I don't hate you either. His shoulders relaxed, just a little. That's more grace than I deserve, he whispered. We talked for a few minutes more, gently, honestly, and then parted ways. No promises. No hope of getting back together. No lingering what-ifs. Just acceptance. And peace. Sometimes closure isn't a door slamming shut. Sometimes it's just two people standing in the sunlight, quietly agreeing to let go. Healing didn't happen all at once. But one day, as I was sitting in a cafe below my apartment, reading a book and sipping tea, I felt something inside me shift. A man at the next table asked me what I was reading. Just friendly conversation, nothing more. But I noticed something. For the first time. I didn't shrink away. Didn't feel broken. Didn't feel like a woman defined by betrayal. I felt open. Alive. Curious. Not ready for love, but ready for life again. And that was enough. Months passed. I got stronger. Softer. More myself. The bitterness faded. The hurt dulled. The shame disappeared. And in its place grew something beautiful. Self-respect. Self-worth. Self-love. One evening, I stood on my little balcony, the sky painted in shades of peach and lavender. The breeze lifted my hair, and for the first time in a long time, I whispered aloud, I made it. Not because the pain was gone, but because I had grown around it. I wasn't the woman who lost her husband. I was the woman who found herself. Healing doesn't always come wrapped in triumph, my friend. Sometimes it comes in the quiet ways, in the way you pick up your own pieces, in the way your breath steadies after a long night, in the way you choose yourself even when it hurts. When I look back now, I don't see a marriage that failed. I see a woman who finally remembered her own worth. I see a heart that walked through fire and didn't just survive, it transformed. People will tell you that betrayal breaks you. But the truth is, it reveals you. It shows you where you've been weakened by compromise, where you've silenced yourself for someone else's comfort, and where you've carried love so gently that someone mistook that gentleness for weakness. And maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've held on to someone long after they let go of you. Maybe you stayed because you believed love was enough. Maybe you gave someone chance after chance, while forgetting you only get one life to live. So let me leave you with this. You don't heal by going back to what broke you. You heal by walking forward, even if your steps are small, even if your voice trembles, even if you're not sure where the road leads. Because the moment you choose yourself, the moment you say, I deserve better, that's when the real story begins. Tell me, my friend, what part of your story are you ready to reclaim? And if my story touched something in your heart today, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, and share your truth with me. We heal together here.